Hi, Namaste. My name is Henry Jedikai. In 2014, I asked David Godman a series of questions in front of the Samadhi of Annamalai Swami. My last question that day was, is self-inquiry compatible with other spiritual practice? I did ask that question because since 1970, I have been practicing meditation related to the heart center, Bhakti Yoga, Raja Yoga, and especially a Buddhist practice called metta, or developing a heart of loving kindness through various meditation. I'm also a long-time initiate of Kriya Yoga as taught by Paramahamsa Yogananda, and I have hundreds of friends that practice Kriya Yoga and Siddha Yoga. So I wanted to know, in the opinion of David Godman, if we can introduce the process of self-inquiry in the various meditation process, be Buddhist, Hindu, Christian, or Sufi.
Self-inquiry doesn't necessitate that you change any belief, change any practice. Bhagavan's teachings on self-inquiry are testing a hypothesis which Bhagavan has given you. He's saying that the person you imagine yourself to be is not real, is not true. He's saying, I can see who you really are. I'm going to give you a little experiment which you can use on yourself so that you can validate what I'm telling you about yourself. If you do this, if you do it successfully, you will discover who you really are. Now that is non-sectarian, it's not conditioned by any set of religious beliefs. He's simply making a bold statement. This is true, this is real, you can't see what I'm talking about right now because you're blinded by certain illusory mindsets. But I can tell you how to get rid of these mindsets. If you practice this particular discipline, if you do it properly, the person who is feeling that the truth is veiled, that the truth is obscured, will disappear, and then what's real, what's permanent, will become manifest inside you, and you'll know it to be true. He never asked anybody to change their beliefs, change their practices, and he didn't, of his own accord, recommend that anybody take up self-inquiry or any other kind of practice. There's a very interesting little line by Lucia Osborne, wife of Arthur Osborne, and she sat with Bhagavan in the 1940s, and she said that in her years of experience of sitting with Bhagavan, she never once saw him tell any visitor to take up any practice unless he himself was asked by them. But the one thing he did recommend to everybody without being asked was to walk around the hill. So the only piece of advice he gave in a proactive way was to do pradakshina aranachala. On all other spiritual practices, he waited for you to ask a question. If you came to him and said, I do japa, he'd say, very good, carry on. He didn't have an agenda, he wasn't a missionary, he didn't think the whole world should follow his teachings. He wanted people to be comfortable with whatever practice they were doing, and if you made a declaration to him that you would like to take up self-inquiry, he'd be very happy, and he would give you some first steps on how to go about doing it. But if you didn't broach the subject, it was very, very unlikely that he himself would tell you to do it. Now, there are different ways of asking a question, and different questions would elicit different answers from Bhagavan. So, if you went up to him with a theoretical abstract question such as, Bhagavan, what's the quickest way to get enlightened? What's the most direct route? Almost invariably he would say self-inquiry. However, that doesn't mean that he would tell you to do it. It was up to you to take that decision yourself, go to him with that decision and get his approval. But one thing that many old devotees have told me is that it was a little bit frustrating that Bhagavan wouldn't take your decisions for you. What he wanted was for you to reflect on what you wanted, what you needed, come to a decision, go and present your decision to him, and if it was one that he liked or approved, you could see by the smile on his face or by some comment that you picked the right choice, made the right decision. So if you went up to him and said, Bhagavan, I've read your book or I've listened to your dialogues, I think I'd like to try self-inquiry, invariably he would say, good, carry on. I don't think there's a single recorded instance of anybody asking if they could do it and him saying they couldn't, but at the same time, it was very, very hard. It will be very, very hard to go through his books and find any instance of him trying to impose it on someone who hasn't broached the subject first with him.